Welcome back to We Know Scripted TV, where today we know Yellowjackets, Season 3, Episode 8, A Normal Boring Life. It's never a normal boring life here on the Yellowjackets recap. My name is Grace Leeder. Of course, I'm not alone. I'm here with Jess Sterling. Jess, how you doing?
So excited to be here. I love when Shauna tells people to eat things. Like,
Really?
yes,
Yeah.
it makes for the best moments. When she shoves Mari's face in the ground in the stew and it's like, eat it, bee. And then, not the word, she says the word.
Yeah.
And then,
Well, bees,
this time,
Yellowjackets, wasps.
eat it, wasp. And then, just biting a piece out of Melissa's arm and trying to feed it to her. Shauna has lost it.
You loved it?
I loved it in the sense that I just love Shauna losing it, I guess.
Okay. Well, you know what I like, Jess? Hilary Swank is on the show.
Woo, we did it.
The season-long mystery. And I will say, I think I called it last week that it was like, yeah, it was like,
you nailed it, Grace.
It was like, yeah, it's been too long for her to do Melissa. They set up this other character of Alex. And we're like, oh, she's probably Alex. I'm like, I bet no, she's actually going to be Melissa, actually. So she is Melissa.
We know exciting.
We did, yeah. Which we know because Hilary Swank is wearing a backwards hat. And so she's Melissa.
Is it? Okay. Did they need to do that?
I love it.
No, they really didn't need to. I'm starting to think that she can't exist without a baseball cap on.
I think she immediately takes it off. She doesn't have it in the rest of the episode. Yeah. All right. Well, A Normal Boring Life. We're going to chat about it. 2 more episodes to go after this one, Jess. So we're nearing the end of the show, but excited to talk about this one. Before we jump into the recap, I just want to give a special shout out to all of the doctors that we summon. Well, doctors or pathologists or any medical expert that we
field.
that we summoned into our YouTube chat, who were so kind to share with us how the Van stuff actually does seem to make sense, which is that it's not that her cancer went away, it's that sort of the markers of having it, basically she's entering remission, and so things are getting a little better. So Nan Fritas, I think is how we say that. Always fun to read out a username.
We apologize in advance.
In the episode where Van is at the doctor talking about her miraculous remission, her doctor actually mentions that her CA-125 levels are going down. CA-125 is the ovarian cancer marker on blood, thus confirming it really was well-documented cancer. And then artist Kirsten says the doctor never said Van's cancer was gone. She said that it stopped metastasizing and appeared to be receding, and that while she had never experienced it in her 22 years in practice, she had heard of it happening. Van's cancer did not spontaneously go away and then come back. It merely stopped growing and spreading unexpectedly. She still has cancer and has had it this whole season, brackets, and last. So yeah, I guess that person never claimed that they were a doctor, but I'll still take their word.
They seem to know the words.
They went back and rewatched the show, which is just as impressive as
yeah. So, and I also think this is is this the first we're hearing that it's ovarian cancer? I don't know that I knew that.
I don't know that I know that either.
Which I find very interesting because it is such a female-driven cast, and I just think it's interesting, and I can't remind me, Grace. Do we know what Van's mom died of? Didn't she say her mom had cancer at a certain point as well?
Oh, I don't remember that.
It was way back when Ty first arrives at Van's apartment and finds the pills, and Van says, "Oh yeah, the cancer took the bee right out of her," or something like that. Either way, I find it really interesting.
Wasps, Yellowjackets
takes the buzz, the buzz right out.
She died of cancer.
Yeah, but unfortunately, this is all too relevant because Van's cancer is not gone. In fact, it seems to be killing her rather quickly at this point.
Yeah. Yes, we will get into that. But I just wanted to shout out to our lovely listeners who are clarifying things for us as we go along and doing it nice and lovely in a way that not all commenters are. Some are mad, some get mad.
We appreciate people being like, "Hey, BT Dubs, this is the factual information."
Yeah, BT Dubs, wasps, BT Dubs. I know bees and wasps aren't the same thing, just so everyone knows. Okay, all right. I think the headline is obviously Shauna Melissa confrontation. Hilary Swank is on the show playing Melissa. the reason why everyone assumes she was dead is because she's been going by the name Kelly. She wrote a suicide note, and turns out the cops will just take that, even if they don't have a body. And surprise, surprise, she's actually married to Hannah's child, Alex, and they have a daughter together. Um,
Yeah.
what do you make of this? Like, we start the episode up. I loved Melissa knowing that Shauna was in her house.
That was so great. I love
Yeah,
both of them having knives.
yeah,
Um, this entire conversation is so interesting where as we kind of suspected, Hannah, it turns out Hannah, who is the scientist, and Melissa grew close, and she knew where Hannah had hidden the DAT tape. She took it home, but she always kept an eye from afar on Alex, who is Hannah's child.
yeah.
And and then apparently, eventually they somehow met and fell in love. And Melissa has basically said to Shauna, like, please don't ruin my life. Like, all I wanted was a normal, boring life. Like, and that's what I have. Like, please don't mess this up for me. And Shauna's argument is, you don't get to have a normal life. None of us do. And it feels almost as if Shauna is talking to herself, in my opinion. Like,
Yeah.
she is saying, after what we did, after what I did, we're not allowed. We're not allowed to have a normal life, and therefore I'm going to ruin what is your normal life. And also, there's so much broken trust here, Grace, that even when Melissa says, I sent you the tape as like a way for you to move on, and I had nothing to do with your breaks, the phone in the bathroom, the freezer locking you in. I had nothing to do with any of that. Shauna doesn't seem to believe Melissa at all.
Yeah, I mean, I love like 99% of all of this. I think that this being sort of I guess a breaking point for Shauna, and I feel like this conversation of like you can't have a normal life because of what we did, that I think we're going to see. I believe if we look back um at the when they're about to leave, is it Shauna who's the first person to say like not leaving? No, it's
Lottie
Lottie.
is
It's Lottie.
Lottie and then Ty and then no, Lottie and then Shauna and then Ty. Sorry. That is
Anyway,
the order.
regardless, I think that Shauna sort of like taking things into her own into like becoming sort of this, the antler queen, or not the way I think we've officially seen her as like that so far in the 90s, but really taking control out there and dictating what they're doing and feeling like she was making these choices. I'm going to continue on this train of thought that I've been on all season about the way in which Shauna sees the decision she made as necessary for her own survival, which I think we can argue is not quite probably true, but I think it's interesting that Shauna believes it to be true. And so then this world at which she sees that somebody kind of like removed themselves from the level of like trauma and daily, it's interesting to think that Shauna thinks that like Melissa has removed herself from it, because probably from Melissa's point of view, she has not gotten over what's happened, but she's trying very hard to have a normal, boring life. And then Shauna basically making sure that Melissa can't do that is like really horrific, I think, in a way that's quite intense to end the episode.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think it tracks with, at the very least, what we've seen of Shauna in season 3. She is so destructive. And the problem is she's destructive not just with her own life, but with the lives of others. It's like she is determined to make everyone as miserable as her, as Melissa and Jeff say this episode. And I want to read out the quote from Melissa because I feel like it says so much about, if not who Shauna is, who other people perceive her to be at this point,
Yeah.
which is, this is what you do, Shauna. You create your own problems, you stir the pot just to feel alive. You stew and you seethe and you make it everyone else's problem because you hate to be alone. You hate yourself and you want everyone else to feel just as miserable as you are. That's such a powerful thing to say to someone. And yes, Melissa has not seen Shauna, been around her in decades at this point. However, this does track with who we've at the very least seen 90s Shauna to be, right? Like, oh, you were sleeping with your best friend's boyfriend before the plane even crashed. It wasn't the wilderness that did this to you. You've always been like this.
Yeah.
It's just the wilderness that kind of unlocked it in you. And I think you could, Grace, I think you could look at Shauna not wanting to leave the wilderness and also everything that happens after that. I think you can read it almost 2 ways or maybe combine the 2 ways in that is Shauna punishing herself for everything she did out there in terms of, "I can't get close to Callie, like, I'm too afraid that I'm gonna get too close to her and then she's gonna get ripped away." Like, she's punishing herself by making herself miserable. Or is she not wanting to leave because she feels like she's become her true self out in the wilderness and is no longer fit into society standards, similar to maybe, the conversation Van and Ty have. Obviously, that is uh more geared towards their sexuality than anything. But is there anything there?
I think that I think it's really interesting if we look at like Lottie, Ty, and Sean, and we'll get to that eventually in terms of the '90s storyline and why they basically all sort of stand and say we're not leaving, which I think they all have different reasons to want to stay out there. But as we're looking at Shauna and Melissa here, I think that um, Shauna I go back to this thing of Shauna not wanting to seem like she's a bad person. And I think that there is a way in which if you go back home, I think there's there's sort of two things I think here at play, and they might be intertwined. And I'm just going to try to like talk through it and see if I can sort of come up with it. Maybe you can help me here. But the idea that once you go back home, you lose the control of being in charge of the scenario and the things that happen and the way people talk about what happened. At least out here, it's a small group of people, and Shauna knows exactly where she stands in the hierarchy. And I think that Shauna does not want the things that she has done to be seen through the lens of that she was a bad person. She wants it to be seen as a thing that any normal rational people would do. I think that the more you go, if you return home to sort of normal civilization, it's way harder to sort of control that I think you can see that Shauna is like a control freak, coming from a self-admitted control freak, Jess.
Yeah.
That's not a complaint, a criticism of her. So I think that that sort of relates to the way that she yells at Melissa too, in the way that she's like, you can't have a normal life because I had to come back and I've had to deal with everything that happened out there. And like on top of that, like Shauna doesn't, I think, necessarily think that the things she did were wrong. And yet all of these things have like come back to haunt her, right? Like it continues to play a role in her life as we've seen over the course of like 3 seasons of this show. So I think that this is well in line with what we've seen. I don't feel like this is such a like um it's not surprising in the sense that it is surprising in the sense that like she bit Melissa and is making her eat her own flesh. That's pretty surprising.
Mhm.
It's not I don't think it like I think it aligns with a lot of what we've seen from Shauna so far, especially this season. So
Certainly. Yeah. I just found their entire interaction to be so interesting, right? Where Shauna asks, like, "Are you still in love with me?" And Melissa's like, "Are you kidding?" Like, no.
that's so funny.
Um,
That's such a narcissist thing
isn't
for
it? I
yeah,
thought the same thing. I'm like,
yeah.
geez, full of yourself much, Shauna? Like,
You know who's gonna be full of
no,
herself?
stop
Melissa.
it.
Melissa. She's gonna have to eat her. Gonna be full of herself.
Yeah. Um, but then okay, so I guess what of course plays in my mind is how much do we believe Melissa is telling the truth here? That she isn't aware of any of this stuff that's going on with Shauna. She didn't even seem to know Lottie was dead. She knew, I think all of this comes to light. She says she sends the tape to Shauna after Nat's funeral. She obviously heard about that. She also mentions there was a note with the tape. Now, I don't recall ever seeing Callie with a note. And she never mentions a note. She never gives a note to Shauna. Do you
Yeah.
recall? Was there a note? I know she's looking at the tape in one scene when either Shauna or Jeff walks in and she hides it.
Yeah, but it gets pulled out of an envelope, right? Like the tape comes in an envelope. So I think it's
Correct.
entirely possible that there definitely is a note. This is sort of the piece of it that um I think I like when I said I like 99% of it. The one piece is that like, um, I g- so what I here's my thing. I really like the idea that like all the stuff that Shauna thought was somebody spying on her and following her turns out to be like not true. I think that that plays really well into sort of a lot of the themes of the show, especially the stuff in the 90s. So then the idea that then um there's like a little bit where I like it feels like there's another bit of information coming at some point that doesn't quite for me right now, and I'm being totally like I'm theorizing rather than playing with what the show is giving me, so I acknowledge that. But it feels like there's one more thing to drop, especially because we have two more episodes. That feels like I can't quite figure out how any of it would jive with the current situation that everybody's in. So if Melissa is honest about having sent a note and sending the tape to Shauna to let Shauna like for basically her to be like, "Hey, now you have the tape. You don't have to worry about like me ever having the tape." And like um you can move on. If that's true, then like Callie has a letter and Callie having the letter maybe doesn't totally jive with me for her conversation with Jeff. The opposite could be true that like Melissa is lying, has, been doing all of this, like is sort of like haunting Jenna. I don't think I love that in terms of like what I think is so good about this scene. So I like kind of there's two possibilities. There could be another third possibility that makes it all make sense, but that's sort of my like I kind of tend to believe that Melissa was telling the truth here, but I don't know.
Yeah, it's tough. It's tough because if she's trying, okay, if in my head at least, and everyone thinks differently, acts differently, whatever. In my head, if you're really trying to move on, isn't the move to destroy the tape, not mail it to a different I don't know. Like it's if that's what you're trying to do, if you're really trying to move on, it feels like you're almost poking the bear to
I
send the
agree with
tape.
that. Yeah.
So that didn't totally line
Except
up.
that they've all been traumatized by all the stuff that they did and don't
Right.
think rationally about any of this stuff.
Exactly. So again, it's really hard to say because of that. So I don't know. I don't know whether or not I believe Melissa. I think I trust her less than you do. I feel like, and maybe it could be the Melanie Linsky goggles. I'm not gonna lie. Like it could be that. But also like we know these characters. It just seems certain things. Okay, the freezer as an example. Could you get locked in a freezer without someone locking you in? Certainly. The brakes thing, I think, is the most obvious thing of like, Shauna, girl, your brakes were bad. Like the mechanic even said so, your brakes are bad. The cell phone with the very specific ringtone, I think, is the one where I'm
Yeah, I
like,
would
I'm
agree.
on Shauna's side there. Like, that's too close. It's too close. Um,
I agree.
so I don't know. I don't know whether I believe Melissa, especially I, you know, yes, she fell in love with Alex, but like I just is it really true love if you're lying about who you are? Like that is a huge lie to have with the person that you are spending your life with, that you have built a life with, that you have a daughter with. Like there's I don't know. I don't know based on the way Hilary Swank plays the character, it almost feels like we are supposed to be sympathetic towards her, like we are supposed to believe her, but even when she's getting Shauna some water, right? Like she keeps trying to say, "Let's set the knives aside. We're sane adults." Um, but when she gives Shauna the water, she makes a move for Shauna's knife, which I'm not saying she's trying to then stab Shauna. It could be she's just trying to take the knife away from Shauna.
Oh, but
But
also she did enter her house. She broke into her house.
oh, certainly. This is not me saying like Melissa was wrong for doing that. I'm just saying like I don't fully buy it. Like I just don't fully buy it. Do I believe she loves Alex? Yes. But I don't fully buy that she is as innocent as she is saying she is.
Hmm. I think that's fair. I think that for me, the end of the episode truly feels like Shauna is to me. I really don't see this as anything other than Shauna is the big bad of the show. Like,
Oh, so I mean, you're biting a chunk of someone's arm out and saying eat it or I'll tell them. Like, I'll tell them everything. That is horrifying. Like, it is unforgivable. It is all of the above. Shauna has fully lost it. Um, it's more so it's less about is Shauna innocent and more about is Melissa guilty, I think, for me.
I just feel like I think this whole thing is a lot. I mean, it's funny because it's like I think what I was about to say makes it sound like I don't like complex or interesting television. I just think the whole thing's a little bit cleaner if Melissa is, and I think it's actually more impactful if Melissa has actually been. I'm not out on the possibility that Melissa has like the sending the tape thing. I do agree with you that it's poking the bear. I do think it potentially is. My reading of that is it's a potential like it's an unintentional poking of the bear of like Melissa does think she's doing the right thing and doesn't, and she's doing the wrong thing because she has trauma about what happened out there. But I think it muddies a little bit of like if Shauna is like, and Shauna is a victim of everything that's happened to her as well, but also there's a level to which like yeah, yeah, I would agree that this thing that she does at the end of the episode is a bit unforgivable, and having Melissa be complicit in, not complicit in, but like not being, lying in this situation, I think makes it less effective as a moment. But that's my
And maybe I should also clarify that Melissa lying and, faking her own death and all of that stuff, right? Um, I'm not necessarily saying that makes her bad because if she's doing it to protect herself from the Yellow Jackets, I understand why she does it. She says, like, she talks about when they returned home and she says, I was no longer one of you and you scared the absolute fucking shit out of me. Like, fair, like if you feel like you no longer belong to that group and you were afraid of that group about what they might do, like she talks about Lottie's cult. I feel like she had perfectly rational fears about what the Yellow Jackets could do to her. So I'm not saying by lying she's doing anything wrong. I'm just saying I don't necessarily fully buy it because she also could be lying. Like everyone could be liars, right? Um, but it's very interesting. I'm so curious to see where we go from here because, like you said, Shauna is fully off the deep end at this point. Like not even just with Melissa, but she's now ditched Van Ty and Misty at the hospital where Van seemingly is dying. And on top of that, her husband can't get a hold of her, her daughter can't get a hold of her. And Jeff, whether you want to say it's for show or not, has fully been like, my wife's a crazy person. Like she's miserable. I don't even like her half the time. Like maybe part of that is showboating and trying to get the sale. But no one is seemingly on Shauna's side currently.
no. So when we talked with Warren Cole, there was a little bit of this. We asked him this one question, and it was like, um, what do you think he's thinking in that moment? And I think that he was reluctant to say. I think because we basically find out this episode, right? So didn't want to sort of tell us what was going to happen. But I think that this episode, maybe I'm too trusting of all these other people, but I feel like that the things he says to the Joels are what he's basically feeling now in this moment. That like, yeah, he didn't quite understand totally just how unhinged or crazy Shauna is actually,
Mhm.
and how much was withheld from him, and the way it's now impacting not just like him but also Callie, and the way Callie's been trying to get to understand this and thinks she finally has got it, and now Jeff kind of is seeing it too. Big shout out to Jeff, who very relatable when he talks shit about Misty after he thinks he hangs up and then is worried he didn't actually hang up. Very
I loved
relatable.
it so much, and then he's just screaming into the pillows,
Yeah.
and Callie's like, "Dad, you need to, like, get a grip."
Yeah.
Um, and yeah, I do think Callie saying, "I don't think anyone's after mom." Like, both of them kind of say it at the same time, and I think they almost needed each other to confirm that or to confirm that they both believe that to feel comfortable saying it because some of the stuff, like we were saying, the brakes, okay, that feels like well, the brakes could go out, it's whatever. Our car is old. We have an old van. So it just feels like slowly but surely she is alienating herself, um, even with her family, with the Yellowjackets, who presumably are probably the people who can understand her best, or at least understand her trauma the best. So, yeah, Shauna being the big bad, I know it's been building, and they've done a really great job at kind of slowly building up Shauna to be this, like, really scary person, um, and a person who is very destructive.
Uh-huh.
So I'm so fascinated to see
And
where
capable. Yeah.
extremely capable. Yeah, like, I mean, we talked about it a bit at the time, but looking back, like, forcing Nat to be the one to carve up Coach Ben's body, like, there's, like, some
Mhm.
real cruel stuff that Shauna does, and now, we also get to see, because I've been talking about this all season long, Grace, but the parallel storylines
Yeah.
of Shauna being extremely destructive and trying to uh, presumably, maybe, possibly ruin Melissa's life at the
Yeah.
same time that in the flashback we're seeing her say, "It's not just that I'm staying, all of us are staying.
Yeah.
No one is allowed to leave. Like, everyone is coming down with me." It's
Yeah.
exactly what Jeff is talking about.
Yeah. The last thing I want to say about the modern day stuff with Shauna is there is this thing she says to Melissa, which I feel like is what I think it's the path we're about to go on with Shauna, which is she says, how brilliant to think that like instead of just like leaving, actually the safest way to make sure nothing gets out is to be the last one alive. And I think that this is likely where we are headed, at least for the next season. If I try to map out sort of a
Mhm.
5 season arc, I do think next season could be Shauna as it's Shauna versus the world. And I think that we could end that in a place where whoever is left at the end of it realizes that it's not each other they need to be fighting. It's whatever else is happening, or actually like face their trauma, which I think is where you start to think about like we head back there, we head back to the wilderness, like any of that sort of stuff. I feel like this is a really good spot to put Shauna in the way of any of them being able to move on. If you think about
Certainly.
the way that they basically were, Nat dying felt like to a degree, sort of like the Yellow Jackets were sort of like on an in a good place, a place that they could like they're not in a good place because Nat died, but like they they appeased the wilderness to some degree, and like could things have gone sort of back to normal? And I think that if you look at the way things had happened, especially the way that Shauna starts to think that things are happening to her and is blaming Misty for them, and then ultimately is going to presumably go after Lottie because do we get have we got confirmation yet why we think she killed Lottie? I guess am I
We still don't know for sure that she did. I
seems
mean, the
pretty,
only thing
yeah.
we've kind of theorized on is that it's a result of Callie, like, with the whole necklace on Callie thing.
Oh yeah, as revenge. Yeah. Okay. Yeah. I think that tracks, and it could be something else, but I think that tracks for the way in which that Shauna wants things to. Shauna is the one who keeps doing things that actually doesn't let them move on and have a normal life. I think actually, I think like I think everyone else is not that everyone else is like behaving perfectly or whatever, but I think other people are moving forward in a way. I mean, there's a whole other tie of it all that we have to like talk to. That's it. I mean, yeah, it is other time, which we'll talk to about. Like, she's one of the people who wants to stay back. Like, I think that's a whole other piece. But there is a way in which like she is really stirring everything, and so she says this thing to Melissa of like, it's what a smart thing to like make sure they're the only one left alive. And I kind of think that's a little bit of like this is the classic thing right now. I feel like that's happening in the real world of these people who like are saying things you're like that's not true, but it is true about you. Like you're saying these, kind of
Yeah.
telling on yourself. So I think that potentially
Mhm.
is something to note. Um,
Mhm.
we do very quick. We get a very brief hospital scene between Van and Ty. Van needs end of life care. Ty goes to kill somebody and can't do it. It does seem like it's interesting. I was having a tough time reading this, Jess, in terms of like when it's. I think we definitely see uh, actual Ty in the scene.
Yep.
I have a tough time knowing like at what is there like at what point does she sort of Is it when she's going to look for somebody? Is that other Ty, or is it like the way that she can't
So
do
this
it?
is where I land on it because I agree with you. It's starting to get very tricky. And it already was, but even more so now. I think when the doctor is saying to her, we have to start thinking of end of life care, blah, blah, blah. I think that's real Ty. And then real Ty is like, Misty, we got to find some guy to kill that's already dying, right? Like, this is like humane. They're already in hospice. When Ty is standing over that man's bed with the pillow in her hands and she's like shaking, the way I viewed that, Grace, is similar to how I viewed Ty holding the gun to shoot at Coach Ben. Like she's willing other Ty to take over so that she doesn't have to be the one to do it. I think she was trying to summon other Ty by hesitating and holding that pillow up, but then nothing happens. And she's
Right.
like, I can't do it. And then, of course, the guy starts, the monitors are beeping and everything.
Yeah.
Does that count? Which did crack me up because I
Yeah, it's
do
very
think it's
funny.
very funny. Um, but yeah, then of course we get confirmation that other Ty is out when we see other Ty going in to see Van and shutting the door on
Yeah, I like
real
this
Ty.
scene.
Yeah, who's begging to see Van. So I think it's safe to say at this point that we've been hanging around with other Ty for the majority of the scenes with adult Ty this season.
I think it's probably most likely that what you're said, the way you frame that is right. That it's real Ty who then needs to try to summon other Ty to actually do the killing. I wonder whether there's something to be said about it actually being the other way around. That other Ty actually never does any killing and actually like brings out real Ty to actually kill people in the sense of kind of like trying to like taint or
Mm.
corrupt real time.
Oh,
Like there's,
hmm.
I think there could be, I don't know. I like that when when I asked the question to you and then right there I was like, oh, maybe it's that. And then you explained a thing that I think makes more sense, but I won't dismiss my own theory off the bat that it's
Yeah,
kind of like other Ty brings her to the brink of like, you have to kill this restaurant worker, you have to kill this man in the hospital, go and do it, and then other ties based or real ties being like tortured into like committing murder, is
it's
like there's something
yeah.
psychological I think that could work about that, but I don't know that's true, but
It's really interesting, but it's just the way I read it is other
I
Ty
think you're
is
right.
like, I have to be the one to handle this. Like, I'm the one who's only been able to do this ever. You're not capable. So let me handle it.
I
It's
agree
like,
with that,
yeah.
except I think there's a world where it could be like other tie like is other tie trying to make them one. Like if other tie can
Yeah.
make a real tie like as evil and as like capable of like murder and death and dirt eating and everything, like they could just be one and
Mhm.
like other tie other tie never has to go away, like other
Yeah.
tie can always yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's it. I don't know that it's the right theory. Like I don't know that it's correct. I don't know that there's like proof of that. And I actually think your theory is way more likely, but I'll posit it so that later I can say, aha, I was totally right. And I
It
never
was
doubted that I
me.
was
Yeah.
wrong.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
No, yeah, but
Yeah.
some real tough stuff. Knowing that, I mean, are they? I guess we should ask here. Put our what is it? I forget. Put our money
Flag
on
in the
the.
ground, put our money on the
Thank
line,
you.
put
Flag
our
in the ground.
foot in our mouth,
All of the above. Um,
put our bees in our
listen.
bonnet.
Uh, are we? Is Van gonna make it out of the season alive? There's only 2 episodes
Uh,
left. They've already killed two. I mean, we've killed Lottie
do
this
yellow jacket.
season.
Yeah, but we have a new
Um,
yellow jacket now. We have Melissa on the board.
we do have a new yellow jacket. So what do you think? Are they gonna kill Van, Grace?
I definitely think Van has been close to death enough that probably at some point it's kind of ridiculous for her not to die, but I don't think Van's dying this season. I think we'll get some others. I think the thing is that like here's a piece about it, and it's mostly from a like structural meta thing of like that's how we ended last season was killing a yellow jacket, and then we've already killed a yellow jacket this season. So I don't think
Mhm.
another
And
yellow
we've
jacket
killed
has
Coach
died.
Ben, which isn't insignificant. Granted, not in the
That's
present
true.
timeline, but I do think it's significant to note that he is gone. I agree with you. I think she has skirted around death enough that she also could skirt around death this season. Like if Shauna goes and kills Melissa, then I think that maybe prevents Van from dying. Like we've talked a lot about the wilderness needs something. It needs to feed. Could Van survive if someone else dies? Possibly.
I think what find a little more I think a route that we could be going down is like, is this how we get Shauna versus Ty, who have not been sort of ever confrontational with each other
Very
recently?
aligned, yeah.
But if Shauna's saying like I have to kill all the other Yellow Jackets to be the only one left alive, and she's trying to kill Van, and Ty is protecting Van, I think that that's
Mhm.
that's something to me in terms of like scenes and stories that you can put in this show. So
Yeah.
I'm gonna say that Van survives this season. I would put a lot of money on she doesn't make it to the end of season 4, but I would
That's what I was
not.
kinda thinking.
Yeah, but I would not put money
Yeah,
on she's dying this season.
yeah.
All right, let's jump into the 90s. Let's take a plane. Oops, it crashed. We're at camp. We open on Misty finding her glasses. I like the shot. They don't do this a lot. The shot of like looking through her glasses with the cracked frame. I just want to shout out the show
Mhm.
for that. Can I ask a question while we're here? I was thinking a lot this episode. There's a scene where not all the yellow jackets, a bunch of yellow jackets are sort of like fantasizing because of the items that they've gotten from the scientists. So there's
Yeah.
a bed which turns out to just be like sleeping bags, and there's toilet paper, even though I don't think that they actually got to, but all this stuff that they're like, it's fantasy. Does this break the illusion for you that like there's a lot of like fantasy visiony stuff, Akila seeing all the
Yep.
animals being dead as well. Does this break the theory that like this is all rose tinted, like yellow
I
tinted fantasy?
I'm kinda over that theory, if I'm being honest. I feel like if that is what's happening, it's gone on far too long, and we've had far too many people being like, "Wow, this is impressive what you all have built." Like,
I
we've
would have
had
broke it when the scientists came, you know,
That's
that's
what
what I
I'm
would have
saying, like,
done.
Coach Ben, you could see maybe trying to, like, appease them and, like, be nice, but the scientists, I don't think so. I think I'm over that theory. I think fully that they built the huts. They had the time. We've seen they've been out here now over a year. We saw them track, Akila, Travis, and Cody, and then all just kind of pop out of the woods in a circle. They're very good at this point. So,
Yeah,
no, I don't think that
I agree.
this is all fake. And I wouldn't have liked the Slurpee toilet bed montage if it weren't a montage.
Yeah,
I found the
yeah,
montage to be pretty fun and pretty 90s.
yeah.
This is 90s territory we're in right
Yeah,
now.
it's very good. All right, so there's this plan of like taking him to the rescue or taking Cody to the rescue point. So this is like Travis and Akila. Akila leaves these markers to be found. The group sort of like ambushes them. There's a little bit of debate about the point of the marker. That it seems like maybe some people like really actually did want to go, like maybe Travis really did want to go, and then the markers were so like, in case you couldn't have like this was like not to ambush us and Cody, it was to basically like, in case we get to the rescue point, you now know the way to get to the rescue point.
Sure. The way I viewed it is Travis and Akila are at a difference of opinion of what to do. Akila wants to go back and get the rest of the group before going to the rescue point. Travis doesn't want to waste any time, wants to immediately go to the rescue point with Cody, and then we'll come back for the others. I think there's more not being said about why each of those people feel that way. I think Travis certainly has reason not to trust the group of people he's been with, right? Like they literally ate his brother, you know? Like I understand him wanting to be like, I need to get rescued right now.
Yeah.
Akila, I also think, right, she is very much leaning more towards the Lottie side of things. Like Coach Ben was supposed to be our bridge. He kind of still is because it was your celebration
Yeah.
of
That's
eating
right.
him that got the
That's right.
scientists on your tail. But
That's right.
um she's leaving the trail and she is purposely slowing them down, right? She's
Yeah.
stopping to tie her shoe. Oh no, there's a rock in my shoe. Gotta dig it out. She's taking her time to allow the yellow jackets to find her trail that she's leaving and catch up to them.
Yeah. Um, yeah. When they sit Cody and Hannah back down, they're like, well, what are we gonna do with them? Like, because we killed Edwin or whatever. And I love Cody, Joel McHale just being like, I didn't see anything. It's fine.
Yep.
You can trust me. I definitely didn't see you axe him in the head. So don't worry. It's fine. And so then there ends up being this debate. There is this like sort of power shift. It's interesting that it kind of happens twice, Jess, or sort of there's like a debate about whether or not they're going to leave. And Nat sort of like wins out for a moment where they all pack up their stuff to go. And it's not until they're like actually going to leave that suddenly there is this firm stance that started with Lottie. Then we get Shauna, and then we get Ty, or some order of that, basically
Yeah,
saying
that's the
like, no,
order.
we're staying. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so interesting because Nat is the one very much pushing. We need to go home. Who cares? We have a 6-day hike. Like, we'll discuss what we do with these people during the 6-day hike. We have plenty of time to figure this out. The most important thing is getting rescued. I would put Van also in that camp of let's get rescued, figure out the rest later. Shauna is the one saying, what are we going to do with these people? They know too much. Same with Misty. That's what they're thinking of. They're thinking of, we need to get our stories straight. We need to get aligned. Ty feels similarly. It's hard enough for all of us to be on the same page. We all are going to have the same story for the rest of our lives. And so that's already kind of churning. And it isn't until Lottie says, and she's already very much like, this isn't right. Something's not right. Something's going on. I feel like it's Akila's vision of the dead animals in the garden that sets Lottie off. That Lottie says, and Grace, part of me feels like the reason Lottie feels like this, she says, if she goes back to society, she won't be her anymore. The me that was made out here. Part of me wants to say, Lottie, girl, you just need to get back on those meds. Like you have been off your
Yeah.
meds for a very long time, and there's a
Yeah.
reason you were on them in the first place. Um, but it's like she feels like she would lose an integral part of herself by going back to society. Like she would lose her connection to the wilderness. So as weird as it sounds, I feel like Lottie has the best excuse for one. I understand Lottie's reasoning the most. Like it tracks to me that she feels like living out here unlocked something in her. It's possible that when she was on the meds, she didn't feel like herself, right? Like she felt like something was
Yeah.
being suppressed inside of her. All of this makes sense to me that Lottie is going to be the first one to be like, nah, I don't want to go home.
Yeah, there's a thing, and so I'm gonna be careful with this metaphor because it's gonna sound like I'm saying like going to summer camp is like going out in the wilderness. We ate nobody at out at summer camp, but there was this thing, especially like weekend programs up where like oftentimes, um, you would think that the idea of like, so I ran a camp for children with type 1 diabetes, and so it's very important in terms of the development of like feeling okay about living with this chronic condition and meeting other people who are the same as you and all of this stuff. And it was like really good. But one thing that I was like worried about was how hard it can be to go to and have an experience like that and then go back to our normal world where like it's hard to be there. It's like you spend like 2 weeks with all these other people who like understand what it's like to live with a chronic condition like type 1 diabetes. And then suddenly have to go back to the real world where like nobody gets it. And actually that like I always wanted to like figure out how we like study actually that piece of it because I think it was like sort of a downside of doing something like that. Like obviously the pros of offering something like that is tremendous, but there is this thing of like it can be really hard. I think we've all had it where you like, you go to a conference and you're like, oh, I'm going to change everything I do at my work because now I've learned all these things. And you go back and like, oh, actually this whole thing is really hard and it sucks. And it's like, it's
Mhm.
hard to do that. So I feel like this is similar that like Lottie has found this place where she kind of gets to be who she thinks she is in a way that I think is compelling to stay. And then I think Shauna, we've talked, ad nauseum about the loss of control she has from leaving. And then Ty, I think, is under the control of literally something else that is preventing her from leaving. We literally see the
Yeah.
man with no eyes this episode. So
Yeah, the Shauna thing is she says something doesn't feel right. And that's kind of echoing what Lottie is saying. And she's saying, I'm not staying because of you or the wilderness, whatever. Something doesn't feel right. And maybe she's making that up. It could just be she really just doesn't
I,
want to. And
I
and that's
think I think so,
yeah.
And I think the thing of like I'm not staying
Yeah.
because of you or it is also that's not the belief system and the government system and the she wants
Right.
to be in charge out here. So she's not staying for the wilderness.
Control. Yeah, she's
Yeah.
staying for the control.
Yeah.
Now, my question is though, we get this interesting vision from Shauna Dream, maybe when she's in the present day, it seems like before she wakes up outside of Melissa's house, where she's working at a checkout counter and Jackie's there and kind of being like taunting her a little bit. Oh, this is all you turned out to be. And she's scanning, hands and arms and legs and all these body parts. And then she looks up and she sees in the fluorescent light, there's these like bird bug things. And
Doesn't she see a yellow jacket over Melissa's head, in this
that was
episode?
the
And
other
then
yes.
yeah.
So I don't exactly know if these are I'm not they kind of look like moths to me. I don't really know what these are, but there's some sort of a bug that are attracted to the light. And Jackie says like, well, they can't help themselves. Like that's what they do, right? Like it's almost like it's in their nature. It's instinct, primal instinct sort of a thing. And then when Melissa and her are talking about leaving, and Melissa's talking about everything she's excited for, and she's excited to pay taxes, and she's excited to have a boring 9 to 5 job. And Shauna looks over her shoulder and sees this like bug. And it almost is like that's what's triggering her to be like, I don't want to go home. I don't know if there's like a metaphorical thing going on, like symbolism. I don't really know. I just thought it was worth noting that this bug, wasp, whatever you want to call it, shows up both in a dream present day Shauna has and over the shoulder of Melissa in the 90s.
Yeah, I think that for me, this just relates back to, I mean, the name of the show is Yellow Jackets, and there's so much nature stuff. And I do think that the bug she sees over Melissa is like a yellow, like it's like whether or not it's like a giant yellow jacket, but I think it is like a wasp yellow jacket. And I think that we've talked a little bit before, and I think really you and Marissa did a lot of like digging into like yellow jacket hierarchy. I think that this thing is like, and the thing of Jackie saying like they can't help themselves. This is the natural order of things. And I think that if we look at Shauna through the lens of Yellow Jackets, I mean, there's the queen bee is the only one who gives birth. Obviously, Shauna has done
Mhm.
that. I think that the sort of, and I think that that line from Jackie is really like that. This is just the nature. This is how we, this is just how people are, and that's I think how Shauna does. Again, I go back to this morality lens that I see in Shauna of like if you take the idea that none of this, there's no good or bad. This is just what you do to survive. This is how you keep control. This you're in charge. I think that that's sort of how I read all of
Mhm.
these motifs this episode. But I
Yeah.
don't know. Yeah, them in the actual light, like under sort of the like light fixture, the panel to me is like,
Mhm.
that's interesting. There's something there I don't feel like I'm totally quite
Mhm.
reading into yet. But
Yeah, and in terms of Ty staying, we do hear her telling Van, "What if people don't accept us like as a couple? Like time has passed, but not that much time."
yeah, I
And
liked
then
this.
yeah, and all the logic of like, what do we do with the scientists? Like we all have to keep this secret. And then when Van is like, "Pack a bag, we're going," we see the man with no eyes
Yeah.
behind seemingly other Ty, which is the Ty that is choosing to stay. Um, on the other side of things, on the
Can I can
wanting to
I
leave,
can
yes,
I jump? Oh, there's one more thing about the light that I think is like
yeah.
one of the things, one of the like, we've heard this like, you go towards the light as a
Yep.
symbology of dying. Like you go to, and it's like a very religious thing. It's this idea that
Mhm.
like Shauna wants to kill every other yellow jacket to like the fact that they are all going to the light. And if that's being explained by like, that's their nature, like, well, yeah, that's just what needs to happen. Then that's another reading I could have
Mhm.
from that. So yeah,
Okay,
sorry.
yeah.
Let's jump to the leaving, folks.
Yeah, so Van, we know she says getting rescued outweighs everything you've just said, Ty. She's basically I think she's of the mind of we'll figure it out. Like let's just worry about getting home first. Melissa, we talked about dreams of college and a 9 to 5 and she's really excited just to live a normal life, which we see her in the present seemingly has. Nat, so interesting. She brings Coach Ben's stuff to the plane. Um, I think there's a bit of like the oh, he died in the plane crash of it all, right? They can pretend that's how he died if they want to do that. But also she apologizes to him. She's like, I'm sorry you're not making it out. And she has this real heart to heart, which I really loved, both because Sophie Thatcher is an incredible actor and really kills these emotional beats, but also because they were very close. And it's sad that he missed out by like one day, one
Or
day.
did
That's
he?
it.
Or did he?
What do you mean?
Well, that they're not. Are they actually going to go home?
Oh, well, right. For her, in her
Yeah.
mind, he
Yeah.
missed
In
out
her
by one
mind.
day.
Yeah.
And then there's something that like shifts in the wilderness and she yells and she's like, "We're getting out. We're getting out of here. You can't prevent it." So like is the wilderness like what is the wilderness doing? Is this a wilderness thing? Is it the wind?
Yeah, can I one thing that I just think from this episode, I feel like one piece that's probably as a result of like Juliette Lewis not being on the show, I guess, is that I feel like I feel like Nat's kind of underutilized, and specifically Sophie Thatcher. I think to me is like she's pretty present, but we're not like I don't feel like we're digging I know she had the scene with Ben and she's had that stuff, but I feel like we're not quite digging into Nat as much as I think like Sophie Thatcher kind of like could you and I don't know what you do. I know we had all the Kevin Tan stuff and there's all the stuff before she left and like her troubled childhood and all that stuff. But I feel like we're getting like I feel like the stuff we're getting from Nat is very like uh plot story focused more so than
Mm,
not that there's nothing character here, but it feels minimal compared to like how much there is about I think this is very much like the Shauna season, which is okay, but I feel like that's coming at the result of like we're not getting a ton and again it's probably that like Juliette Lewis is on the show, so we're not doing like parallel Nat
right.
modern day past stuff. Like there's just a piece of that that I feel like is missing. But I do quite like the scene of her going to the airplane. So yeah.
Yeah, especially because, the airplane is such a significant place for the character of Natalie,
Yeah.
right? Like, her and Travis hung out there a lot, like, it is a very important place, it's the place where she, encountered the white moose, so, it's an important spot for the character. I don't know, I still think we've gotten good Nat content. I agree. I think it's Shauna's season, but I do still think like we've gotten maybe we haven't gotten as much as we've had in past seasons. And so it feels like less than, but I still think anytime Sophie Thatcher is on screen, like I just feel so much for this character. Like she does a really good job at playing this character that I feel like I know her. You know what I mean? Like she feels like because I love her trying to like Shauna's like, "You're not the leader anymore," and she's like, "We're about to get rescued. Like, shut up. Like, who
Yeah.
cares?" And
Yeah.
that feels like something Nat would say. You know what I mean? Like it feels like that's exactly how Nat would react. Um,
I feel in similar vein, I
yeah,
feel like we're not getting a ton of like 90s Misty stuff. We got and
I
again
would agree with that.
there is glimpses of it. There's like the scene where she kisses Coach Ben's dead body, but like
Yeah.
not a ton. Like the crystal stuff is just like totally like I can't
Oh
believe
yeah,
we've never
totally gone.
revisited anything related to that. But anyway.
Yeah, yeah. So yeah, I mean, I think it's really interesting. So we're now setting up that we have everyone versus Ty, Lottie, Shauna,
Yeah.
seemingly in terms
Yeah.
of staying versus going. And I'm really interested in what Shauna's going to say in terms of this is how I'm going to keep you here. Um,
Yeah.
I mean, does she just straight up kill Cody and he's the one who can get them back? Hannah, I think the Hannah stuff we set up this episode is basically Hannah has no effing idea where they are, how to get them back. So it's fine if she stays alive for a while, and seemingly she does because Melissa can't grow close to her in a matter of like
Yeah.
2 days.
Yeah.
So, well, she could, but I think she's going to be around for a while, and I think I'm really feeling the pet girl vibes from her. She got that dark hair,
Mm, mm.
and it's down this episode, and I'm like, I don't know, could be
I
pet
think it
girl.
Yeah, I think it'll be interesting to see in terms of one of the things that Shauna has been able to do over the course of this season is to make other people do things. So she makes Nat cut up Ben's body. She makes Melissa cut Ben's tendon. It's she has asserted her control in a way where she doesn't actually have to act, which is also very
Mhm.
queen bee, wasp coded. It'll be interesting just for me to see. I definitely think you're onto something with like Cody is the way that she can prevent their escape. Like 6 days is not that you could just like stumble upon it. If you go in the wrong direction, you're 6 days gone. Like you can't just
Mhm.
risk, I think, going. So stopping Cody. I think what's interesting is looking at who on the leaving side is Shauna going like, can Shauna assert her control and get somebody to do something not in their own self-interest, or does Shauna have to do it herself? And my
Mhm.
thinking there is I feel like you could symmetry line up sort of like what she's doing at the end of this episode with like doing something to Melissa with like the moment where Shauna actually has to like do something and does Shauna kill Cody when nobody else will? I feel like there's yeah, it'll be interesting to see. But I definitely think you're right
Yeah.
that Cody is the key here to like Shauna being able to make them stay. So
He's the only one who can get them to the rescue point. The
yep.
thing is though, like even with Cody off the board, they know they're only a 6-day hike from rescue. Like if it's me and you're telling me, and obviously they don't necessarily know what direction, but Travis and Aquila were on the path at the very least. So if it's me and you tell me I'm 6 days from, I'm hiking. I don't care. I'm taking supplies. I'm hiking. I'm getting out of there. And I know
Oh,
that's crazy, and I'd probably die. But I'm an idiot. So that's that.
6 days is he says 6 days if you can keep up. So uh
Sure, they
yeah.
can keep up. Yeah.
But yeah,
I can't
it's
keep up.
going 6 days in the wrong direction is a bad idea.
It's
So
a very bad idea. We saw what happened last time with the wolves.
yeah.
But
Okay.
it's all
Yeah.
very interesting, and I do think Cody is not long for this world. And I'm also interested. We haven't really brought him up kind of at all. But the heck's up with Walter? Are we
I was
gonna get
gonna
more
say that
Walter
too.
this season? Because
Yeah, we definitely will because he
I don't know.
got the test results from to Misty. So
Right,
I think that
right.
we probably just yeah, we didn't check in
A
with
lot of
him, but
stuff going on. Not always
a
time.
lot.
We got
Yeah.
Hillary Swank. I'm not complaining.
I know we got Hillary Swank this
Woo!
episode. We did it. Oh, we didn't talk about Wonderwall. Wonderwall gets played. It was delayed.
Wonderwall got played,
Jeff,
and I lost my mind.
we saw
That's all.
while Jeff was on screen too. I loved it. Yeah, yeah.
I loved it
Um,
so much. It was so good.
Soundtrack has been great. Okay, that is episode 8. Next week we'll be back with the penultimate episode of Yellowjackets season 3, episode 9. In the meantime, Jess, what else you got going on?
Oh, you could find me at the Jess Sterling. I'm talking about Schitt's Creek. We're nearly at season 5, if you can believe it.
Wow.
We're on Buffy season 4 over on Shit 90 Shows Taught Me. And then of course we're wrapping up Felicity with the final season over there as well. So a lot of fun stuff happening, and I'm having a blast. We're in a great time for TV, people. Let's cherish this time while we have it, you know?
It's
What about
very
you, Grace?
good. Yeah, Tastemakers each week with Taryn. In addition to that, Taryn and I are talking Wheel of Time, as well as lots of recaps happening here on We Know Scripted TV. Yeah, check it all out. We know scriptedtv.com. I can read my work on Parade. I've interviewed some of the cast of Yellowjackets as well. So check that out. We'll be back next week with another recap. Until then, a licky boom boom down.